Hey guys, Mark Holthe here, Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher, coming to you live once again. We're a little bit late or later than we normally are. It's about 12:17 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, but I am back. Had a little bit of a layoff. Was away with my family last Tuesday. I did do a couple little short EE Live Q&As in the middle, but this is back on track for our regular Tuesday lunch version of the EE Live Q&A. So I've had a bunch of people who've sent me in some great questions. I've got those that I plan on answering. But for those of you who are just logging in, we'll give people a little bit of time to connect here, and then we'll get rolling. I am going to pull up on my screen here the live feed so that I'm going to be able to see everybody's awesome comments. So I think everybody should be able to hear me now. Last time I forgot to turn the mic on, which is life, unfortunately. Sometimes the technical ability of what I'm doing here is not, the best that it could be. But hey, you've got me answering questions, managing my own live Facebook video here, and trying to keep everything sorted out at the same time, which I think personally is a pretty amazing feat. Okay, so we've got everybody tuning in here, which is awesome. If you can just let me know, post in the comments if you can hear me okay, and also where you're tuning in from, that would be great. While we're waiting to get to that, let's see. So Amandeep says, how's it going? I'm going fantastic, my friend. And Jazdeep's given me the thumbs up, which is awesome. All right, so at least I know now that I'm recording great. Now, I want to show you guys a couple things here as we're moving forward. On the weekend, yesterday, Monday, was a long weekend here in Canada. And this is something that you guys need to understand. Usually at least once a month, there is one Monday that's also considered to be a statutory holiday. Oh, excuse me. And that was yesterday here, and it was our Labor Day. And so we got a day off work, and I took that day and I took my fine horse, Joe, and I'm going to show my picture here. There it is. So there is my horse, Joe. And we followed that trail there back towards just about the base of that mountain that you can see there. It was a nice level trail. I had a lot of fun with my friend Corey. And there's Joe, my good old faithful quarter horse. And so I thought what I'd do is I'd give you a little bit of a taste. Some of you who've been around for a while were able to go on a few trail rides with me last year, but I want to show you what it's like crossing a creek, or at least coming close to it. I think I stopped it before we actually started to cross, but let me show you a little video here, and hopefully you guys can hear. We'll stick it up here. Our first little water crossing here. We'll see how they like it. It's not very deep, so they're probably okay. So there we go. You can see trekking across. Someone's made a little makeshift dam. The water's quite a bit lower than it is earlier in the year. So there you go. So there's Dude, my friend Corey. He's riding across there, and then I followed after him. So I thought that might be just fun. I don't know if any of you have ever ridden a horse. Just post here in the comments. I'm curious if any of you guys have ever ridden a horse. That would be totally cool. So that was my experience here yesterday, and that is what you get in Canada. And that's actually near my very, very favorite place called Waterton. And we've had a lot of fires, so I wasn't able to, Corey and I were not able to do any big rides up into the mountains like we usually do. So we had to stay on the opposite side where it's flatter, and but still we went on the Wishbone Trail. It was awesome, really, really enjoyable. All right, so Jasdeep says, awesome, I love horse riding. Very cool, very cool. Suvik says me, and Diksha says yes, awesome guys. Okay, well, that is pretty much it. I'm going to get rid of a few other things here so that there's more visible screen here when I'm showing you guys and answering questions. But I wanted to start off by expressing appreciation to everyone that purchased with the discounted offer a lifetime subscription to my Express Entry complete step-by-step guide to doing it yourself, the response was overwhelming. And I can't tell you guys how much I appreciate those who purchased the guide and are now using it to help navigate their own way through Express Entry. And it was created for you guys, and to know that people are actually getting benefit from it means so much to me. So thank you to all of you who purchased it. And if you do want to still get access to it, the discount is no longer valid because that came to an end, but you can always subscribe to it on a monthly basis or subscribe to it for a lifetime access at the regular rate. Okay, let's jump into the first question that was sent to me. And as I indicated before, actually, let me just pull this up. Bear with me 1 second, guys. I am just going to pull up. There's that window. There's lots of stuff going on here. Let's see if I can find it. I just want to pull up this and this. So right here, mholthy@stringham.ca and EE Live Q&A. That's where you send your questions if you would like to have a greater chance of having them answered. Or if you're watching this, can't even back it up here, the light's in the way. There we go. If you would like to have your question answered and you're maybe not able to attend the live video, basically because it's 12:23 there, so it's probably 12:23 a.m. In the morning in some of the places where people are watching. Okay, so that's what you do. Send me an email and put EE Live Q&A in the subject line. All right, the first question is from Stephanie. And Stephanie says, "Hi, Mark. I'm a dentist by profession in India, and my previous employer has sold his clinic and moved to a different country. Guess where? Canada. I was paid in cash, which is a problem sometimes, although he is willing to give me a work experience letter. But what about the company letterhead? What would you suggest? Thanks in advance." Okay, Dr. Stephanie, whenever we are trying to get reference letters to support our prior skilled work experience, all kinds of different circumstances arise. Sometimes businesses are shut down. Sometimes the company that we worked for was sold to a different entity, or the people we worked with don't even work there anymore and no one even remembers us. So there's a whole host of different issues. But at the end of the day, you have an obligation to make sure that you provide evidence to support that you have met all of the requirements that you need to meet in order to claim that work experience. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just jump to my screen here, if I can, my messy screen, and I'm going to go to the completeness check website right here to just remind everybody, if this is your first time watching, we definitely go out of our way to try to give as much information and the links back to it as we can. So you can see here, I can probably move this over just a little bit. There, that'll work. So in work experience, you have an obligation to prove these things. So job title, duties and responsibilities, job status, dates worked for the company, annual salary and benefits. And you can see up here that it tells we need to provide a reference letter or experience letter. Well, Stephanie, in your situation, you've got one huge advantage. You still have a good relationship with the person who employed you, and they can provide the letter for you. So if the company is closed and the person who owns the company, well, they still own the letterhead. They can still put it on company letterhead. They can still do all of that. But in the letter, they're going to very clearly explain that the business is now closed because they themselves have immigrated to Canada. And they're going to provide their Canadian contact information and everything associated with what's asked here. So telephone, email address, name, title, and obviously they're going to sign the letter themselves. So for sure, that's what you're going to do. And so you're actually in a whole lot better position than a lot of my clients who are who don't have any contact with the actual employer or don't have a good relationship with them and are unable to get the letter. So you're going to go forward. You're going to get that letter. Now, whenever you're paid by cash, that's always a problem because ultimately it's a lot easier if you can show pay stubs. Well, I guess that's the question. He may have paid you He may have paid you in cash, but did he issue pay stubs for you? Is there a record of the months that you actually worked? So those things are also some things that I would advise you to look into. But ultimately, getting that letter completed, and if you wanted, on top of the letter, because the business is closed, if you wanted that employer to actually do a statutory declaration in Canada, a sworn statement confirming all of the information in the letter, then you can do that as well. But ultimately, I would indicate in the very first paragraph, make sure he indicates that the business is no longer operating, and so that the officer doesn't get confused or think that there was some misrepresentation in any way. All right. Okay, good question. All right, let's take a look at our next question here. I'm going to pull this up. And the next question, and remember guys, all of this is all related to express entry. The next question is, and I actually should have, I'm going to get my nice Stringham pen here, which you can see it's got nice imprinting with Stringham. I'm going to get that pen, and I'm going to just make a quick note of the timestamp on here so that I can make sure that we're recording at the proper time. So that was about, I'd say about 10 minutes or so, that one. Okay, next one is Dick Shaw. And Dick Shaw's question is, I am applying for PR through Express Entry. I have CRS 475 and received an ITA. Fantastic. Now, there's a couple questions that Dick Shaw has that flows from the receipt of the ITA. So one, I worked in an organization at 2 different designations. While creating the profile, I erroneously mentioned my whole job tenure, 3 years, under the latest designation. However, in my post-ITA profile, I have separately mentioned each designation and its associated time period. So is it any misrepresentation? Should I decline my ITA, or can I explain this in a letter of explanation? Okay, Dick Shaw, I can tell you in these circumstances, 475 points is quite high. One of the options that you do have is to decline, fix it, and then resubmit your profile. Based on all of the previous draws that we've had lately, 475 points is going to give you an extremely high chance of getting another ITA. I'll always tell you guys that there's never ever a guarantee. Anything could happen. You could decline your invitation, go back into the pool, and then it never ever gets down back to where you were originally drawn. But for your situation, Dick Shaw, 475 is really high. And if we were to go to the rounds of invitations, and I'm going to share my screen with you guys again, and I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to type in EE. You can put IRCC or CIC. I just have done CIC for so long that I think Google understands what I'm looking for. But if you look at the rounds of invitations here and we scroll down, you can see the last one that happened. The pass was 440, and there were 3,750 people given invitations. But if we go back right here and click on see previous rounds, and we just scroll through this here, you guys can see there's 440 here, and I'll pause it. There's 441, so I'm looking right here. And then we go down further, 442 there. You can see that if we went through all these, 442, this one's 451, and then we keep going here, 440. Anyways, you guys get the picture. So what I'm saying, Dick Shaw, is that you have a very, very strong likelihood that you can just fix this. And if you were my client, I would probably decline the invitation, correct it, and then resubmit it. Remember, when you're claiming work experience, the first thing you need to do is demonstrate that you have at least 1 year of continuous full-time work experience in your primary NOC. Once you've got that, you've met the minimum federal skilled worker entry criteria. As long as you have sufficient work experience to meet the federal skilled worker pass mark, understand there's 2 parts to this. And whenever people ask me these questions, some people don't even understand the first part. The first part is to demonstrate that you're actually eligible for one of the permanent resident programs. So in many of your cases, it's the federal skilled worker program. And there's a 67-point pass mark, which looks at a lot of the human capital factors that are also assessed under the comprehensive ranking system. So as long as you continue to meet the 67-point pass mark with just that one NOC, so just counting experience from that one NOC, which is usually the case if you have 475 comprehensive ranking system points, then you can include work experience in other NOT codes that are also at a skilled level. So I don't anticipate it being an issue, but for you in those circumstances, I would fix it. Now, some people, if your comprehensive ranking score is not as high as Dick Shaw's, let's say it's 440, let's say you got drawn at 440, then the likelihood of it coming down is going to be considerably less than if you were at 475. So the way I assess it is pretty simple. In those circumstances, if I've made a mistake and I've listed work experience in a way that wasn't correct and I made that mistake, I always correct it. I clearly set it out in a letter of explanation. I get a reference letter that properly reflects the two positions. And then I demonstrate how even if only one of those positions is counted towards the comprehensive ranking system score, or how I restructure things that it doesn't lower my comprehensive ranking system score below the pass mark of 440. So when you switch it for Dick Shaw, more than likely you're still going to get 3 years of skilled work experience. But if that's the case for you, and you still meet the 440, or in the case of Dick Shaw, 475, then there's discretion on the part of an officer to accept that correction because it won't affect your comprehensive ranking system score. The error you made would not negatively affect whether or not you got an ITA, and you continue to meet the minimum entry criteria or eligibility criteria for one of the federal skilled worker, for one of the programs. The federal skilled worker program is usually it. If both of those things that are okay, then there is a strong likelihood that the officer will allow it to just keep going forward. But for you, Dick Shaw, I wouldn't worry too much about it. If you're my client, understanding that there's always risk, there's always a chance that if you do decline, that maybe it doesn't go down to 475 again. But I think the likelihood of that is extremely remote. And so for my clients, I would advise them to decline the invitation and then fix it and then resubmit the profile. Okay. All right, so I'm going to stop Dick Shaw with just that one, and then I'm going to move on to someone else so that everybody gets a chance for their questions. Okay, this one here is from Tamerlan, and Tamerlan says, "Good day, Mark. I have two questions if you don't mind." Well, I'll answer one of them. I hope they are going to benefit everyone. What if I take a police clearance from Russia a couple of days before leaving it and 1 month before getting an ITA? Okay. Let's go back and I'll show you guys this whole police clearance world that we're dealing with here. Make a quick note of the time for this one. Okay, so we're going to go in here and we're going to just type in on the same page that we were at. So I'm printing. I didn't mean to do that. We're looking for find here. So we'll go to police clearance and pull it up. Oh, I know why, because I'm on the wrong page. Let's try this one here. There we go. There we go. Okay. So when you're going through and you're trying to determine the eligibility or how valid a police clearance is, you'll go to the police clearance section. I'm actually going to scroll down here a little bit because I know it's a little bit lower. Here we go. So you can see these are the requirements. And this is one of the issues that Tamerlan is having. Okay. So if you look here, so if it's your current country of residence, the police certificate must have been issued no more than 6 months before the submission of your EAPR. So Tamerlan, one thing that I don't have here as I scroll this is I don't know what your comprehensive ranking system score is. And so I'll assume that it's high and that you're going to get an ITA right away. So you have, you've got 6 months essentially. So if you indicated that, okay, so you got it a couple days before leaving and 1 month before getting your ITA, well, depending upon when you get the ITA, that police clearance is probably still going to be valid. So it needs to have been issued no more than 6 months before you submit your EAPR. So you have time. If this is just recent, then you have time for that police clearance to be just fine. If for whatever reason you are running out of time and that police clearance becomes longer than 6 months old, then you may wish to obtain a new one just to be safe. Most officers are not going to get too fussed if you go back and obtain a police clearance and then leave 2 days later. But if you actually reside there or resided there, then sometimes it can cause a little bit of issue. And let's face it, officers can be cruel. So there's discretion. An officer could say, well, they left as soon as it possibly they could after getting the Russian police clearance, or they could say, well, the only way you can get a Russian police clearance is if you're actually physically present. So if you're physically present, there's never going to be a situation where you're actually going to be able to leave and then have the police clearance issued to you. I'm not sure if that's the case, but we're talking hypotheticals here. But in your case, Tamerlan, I would actually encourage you, if you get your ITA, to file your EAPR as quickly as possible. And if you don't, and it's been more than 6 months, then I would actually consider getting another one. Okay. All right. That's a great question. Okay. So we'll leave that one for Tamerlan. All right. Next question here. This one, I'll pop back to me in my ugly mug here. This one's from Henry. He says, my question is concerning police certificates as well. So I got one last year, November, from the UK in anticipation of getting an ITA early this year, but that hasn't happened yet, as the scores have not dropped below 440, which is correct. I've also not been in the UK since 2010. I am now hopeful of getting an ITA in October, as I would be claiming sibling points. Cool. So that'll give you an extra 15 points. Can I still use the UK police clearance, bearing in mind that I've not gone back in the UK since 2010? Awesome. So the answer is also right here. As I go back, you can see here. So for countries in which an applicant no longer resides, the police certificate must have been issued after the last time the applicant stayed in that country for 6 months or more in a row. So in your case, Henry, your police clearance, if you never return back there, will continue to be valid perpetually. So note, you don't need a new one. So that is actually a really, really good question. And I think to a large extent, we could almost call this EE Live Q&A, everything you wanted to know about police clearances, but we're afraid to ask. Okay, so we'll put that one in here. Okay, next question. This one is from Carolyn. And Carolyn says, hi, Mark. I thought I would resend my question from last week, just in case it got lost, as you did not do your scheduled live Q&A last week. And unfortunately, your surprise ones were in the middle of the night for me. All right, Carolyn. So here's Carolyn's question. I thought I also have one more quick question. Okay, so actually, I'm going to answer just the quick question. So basically, she says, during the application, the following question is asked. And it says, the date Carolyn first became qualified to practice in this occupation. If the primary occupation is any other job, this is the date they first obtained the minimum education or training stated in the NOC description. So then Carolyn goes back and she pulls up NOC 2161, where it states actuaries usually require post-secondary education in actuarial science, math, statistics, blah, blah, blah. And it goes through and explains what the requirements are from an education standpoint to work as an actuary. So should I use the date from when I graduated from university, or should I use the date when I had 3 years of work experience, though I have not yet passed all my professional exams yet, and I'm not a fellow in the UK yet? Thank you very much. So Carolyn, I actually always go with the education. So the minimum education requirements, if there's post-secondary education, then I go from that date. So that's the date that I go by. For all intents and purposes, I don't even know why they ask this question, I'll be honest. At the end of the day, it tends to relate as much to the Federal Skilled Trade Program as anything else. But for everybody else, I always go with when education was completed for whatever occupation requires an educational credential. So in your case, that's what I would use. So good question, really good question. All right, and I will make a quick note on this one as well for the time for that one. And it was probably about 22:30 or something. Okay, great. Now I'm going to flip back here, and we actually got through those questions pretty quick. So we're sitting at about 24 minutes. So now I am going to open up and take your questions, your live questions right now. So let me see if I can shrink this down so I can see it a little bit better. Okay, Dick Shaw says, thanks so much. You're very welcome, Dick Shaw. Okay, let's see here. We're going to go up and see if I missed any. So starting right now, we'll start with Mahish's question here. So Mahish says, Hi, Mark. This is Mahesh from India. Hope you're doing great. First of all, thank you for your wonderful assistance on Express Entry program. I had a question on job reference letter. I'm not getting the required job reference letter in company letterhead. Just wanted to check if I can get it on blank white paper with all the necessary details and supporting evidence such as my supervisor ID, card, photocopy, and official contact details for further backup. Okay, Mahesh, whenever you have a situation where you can't get it on company letterhead, then everything that you provide needs to be a sworn statement from that supervisor. And even then, the government's going to ask, you're going to need to explain why you cannot get that reference letter. And you need to go out of your way to get everything you can to support the fact, that for whatever reason, the company isn't giving it to you. Because at the end of the day, all they're going to have to rely on then is your supervisor. And is your supervisor currently working with the company? That's a question they're going to ask. And is the supervisor really even a supervisor? So yes, you're going to include all of the supporting evidence. You're going to have the ID card. You're going to have the official contact details and a clear explanation why they won't give you the letter. But at the end of the day, you're just going to do the best that you can. You're going to take whatever evidence you have, all the information that you can to support and prove your work experience. And if the company doesn't cooperate, which sometimes they don't, sometimes they're kind of jerks because they know you're going to immigrate to Canada and leave them behind, they don't cooperate for you. But in your case, do everything that you can, okay? So we'll put there, and I'm going to put here work experience, and that was Diksha, and that was right at about 25 minutes. Okay, I'm going to try to do better timestamps. I wish I had someone who could timestamp these for me, but whatever. Okay, moving forward. The next question is from Aditya. And Aditya says, hi, Mark, my current CRS points is 423 and my LMIA is approved. Still, I didn't receive the letter on hand. Just wondering, should I update in my profile? And main concern is my work permit is expiring in November of 2018. Okay, Aditya, this is one, congratulations on getting that LMIA. That is awesome. But you haven't received the LMIA back? Is that what you're indicating? Because when you're doing this, obviously that LMIA, if it fits the requirements, is going to give you an extra 50 points and jump you from 423 to 473. The LMIA should come. You've got time. November is still a ways out. And ultimately, even if you're working in implied status, in other words, you get your LMIA, you submit your work permit extension, and you haven't received a decision yet when your work permit expires, you can still benefit from implied status and you can still claim that work experience under your job offer. Now, I'm making the assumption, Aditya, that your work experience is consistent with your LMIA. In other words, you're working for the same employer and that it's a continuation of your existing work permit. So I'm assuming that's the case. If not, just let me know. But you should be fine. I don't see any issues with this. Even when you're on implied status, as long as everything's consistent, you can still consider that to be valid work experience for Canadian purposes. Okay. All right. Sonia says, if someone has 68 out of 100 points with 1 year experience, do they need to show more experience? Well, Sonia, remember, this is a question that relates to the Federal Skilled Worker Program. And Sonia is asking on the actual, the eligibility criteria, there's a 100-point threshold. And so if you're sitting right at 68, no, the pass mark is 67. And some people are probably wondering, Mark, what are you talking about? What is this 68 out of 100 points that Sonia is referring to? Let's jump back here, and then I'm going to go to the Federal Skilled Worker Program eligibility, and I'll show you what I mean. And the government has actually tried to make this just a little bit more easy to understand. So there are selection factors, and right off the bat, they're trying to teach people, and it wasn't always like this. When did they last update this? Let me see. They last updated this, see, August the 29th, 2018, just recently, to make it easier for people to understand, which full marks to them for doing this. So let's go down. Let's just take a quick look. So you have to meet these minimum program requirements. And remember, this is different than the comprehensive ranking system. This is what you have to meet before. So these are the factors, which are very similar: age, education, work experience. Do you have a valid job offer, language skills, and adaptability, which are somewhat similar to the skill transferability factors, but not exactly. So these factors you can see right here are part of a 100-point grid. And when you click on here, you can see the pass mark is 67. So when you have all of these assessed, and if you look at the selection grid and we scroll down, it gives a breakdown of how many points that you get for each of these. So 24 for language, 25 maximum for education. So you guys get the picture. I don't need to spend a lot of time going through this. But the question here that we're trying to work through is basically if you have 68 points is what what's being asked. I'm going to flip back here till I find the question. You guys ask the question so quick, then I lose track of it. Okay, so Sonia is saying, do they need to show more? Well, no, you don't. If you have 1 year and that's enough to meet the eligibility for the Federal Skilled Worker Program, and you also have enough comprehensive ranking system points to be able to reach that pass mark for the invitation to apply, then no, you don't need to list more work experience than you can actually prove. So great question. Okay, so that's Sonia. Now, Sonia, I am going to, let's see. People say they can't edit their comments. Okay, well, maybe they can't. All right, let's see. Udit, depends on your CRS. Come on, Udit, that doesn't help. That's a useless response, my friend. You need to offer more information so that everybody who is reading it and doesn't know what they're talking about, because depends on your CRS, is correct, but you need to give a little bit more information. Okay. All right, Suvik says, how to get a PNP nomination? Please provide some info. And if someone has only 1 year experience, then will I be able to land in Canada? Suvik, that is a question that goes far beyond anything I can answer in an EE Live Q&A. Every province is different. Some allow independent applicants, so foreign nationals with no contact to Canada, to be able to qualify. But those programs are shrinking. They're becoming fewer and fewer. And so I can't answer that. That's more of an eligibility question, Suvik. And you would need to actually book a paid consultation with me so that I can look at your whole history and carefully examine all of your options, both for the express entry general stream as well as all the PNPs. So that is the response for Suvik. Okay, Carolyn, she's back at her here. I guess Carolyn decided to stay up today. Good for you. Hi, Mark. Thank you for answering my question. The other one I had, in short, is how do immigration officers assess if the job duties on the NOC are the same as on the reference letter, if the job is quite technical? I assume that the job duties on the reference letter should not be verbatim from the NOC description. Is it worthwhile adding an explanation in my letter of explanation as well? Thank you. Carolyn, they're supposed to have brains. The officers are supposed to be trained and intelligent enough to understand the technical aspects of your job description. When you're doing it, absolutely, you do not want to just copy the responses verbatim. But when you're an actuary or whatever your position is, the reality is your job description is going to be exactly it. It's going to explain exactly what you do. And as long as the duties that you've listed, even though they're not worded exactly the same as in the job description, if they mean the same or they are encompassed by those, then there shouldn't be an issue using technical language. Now, with that being said, an officer has to understand, and the more plain language you use in describing your job description for the purposes of immigration is going to be an advantage, because it's going to be easier for an officer to make those connections between the duties you've actually performed and the duties that are listed in the NOC position profile. So, hope that answers your question. But yeah, 100%, you don't want to copy it verbatim, but just make sure that that the duties match. If you wanted to, out of just your own concern, provide a more detailed explanation for the officers, then you can do that. But where are you going to explain it? In the letter? You know, in your own letter of explanation, it's going to seem almost a little bit self-serving. But understand, I think you're going to be fine. You just need to make sure that the duties that you provide actually match up with the duties listed in the NOC. If they don't, then that's where you're going to get issues. So if your job description doesn't actually encompass or match up, even though it's different wording and more technical language, if it doesn't match up with with a substantial number of those main duties, then that's a whole different discussion. Okay? All right, Carolyn, great question. Okay, Diksha says, can you please answer my second query shared with you over mail at the end of the session if possible? I understand that everyone should get the chance. Okay, Diksha, rewrite your question, okay? Rewrite your question in the comments and I'll get to it for sure. Okay, Vinay says, hi Mark, I received the US police clearance and it doesn't state the dates and addresses I've lived. Nope, because they do not. Only some countries list the dates and addresses that you've lived. Also, I am told Indian police clearances doesn't reflect that. Will it be fine to submit like that? I had several trips back and forth between US and India. Yeah, they don't, not only, like Pakistan might list it, but and other places might list it. Other countries might list that, but not the vast majority of police clearances all over the world do not list addresses and they don't list the dates that you were there. They're just a blanket, does this person based on their actual fingerprints or their name search or their tombstone data, we call it, your date of birth, your sex, your name, those kinds of things. So no, you don't need to worry about that, Vinay, at all. Okay, good question. I don't know if anyone's ever asked that one before. Okay, Masood says, study permit related inquiry. Okay, Masood, thank you for highlighting that because that one, actually, I'm not going to answer within our express entry. So I'm going to skip that one, Masood. Zishan says, Mark, please guide regarding Quebec skilled worker immigration program. Is it started yet? Zishan, same situation, my friend. I haven't heard too much about it. Anything Quebec based, I send to my good friends, Avi Gomberg, so Gomberg Dolphin in Quebec, to that law firm. I send all my Quebec-based immigration to them. Why? Because they know what they're doing. And I know where my expertise lies and where it doesn't. And I don't represent a client. Like, could I do Quebec-based? Yeah, I could figure it out. I could do the translations. I could do everything that's needed. But I know that you're going to be better served by someone who actually lives, works, is a lawyer in Quebec, who understands everything at a very, very high level. And the reality is, in most cases in Canada, when you're employing someone from Canada, the legal fees are very little. There's very little difference between what an immigration lawyer is charging and what a very good, reputable consultant is charging. The ones that don't know what they're doing, oh yeah, you can get it for free because you're getting what you're paid for. I shouldn't say free, but very cheap. Okay, great question. Okay, Aditya says, yeah, I'm working since last 1 year with same company on my post-grad work permit. Yep, you're fine, Aditya. If you have any questions and you want me to go through and help you to make sure that you don't fall into any problems or run into any issues trying to extend, because it is a little bit complicated, don't hesitate to reach out, book a consult. In 30 minutes, I can probably answer all questions and just give you a little bit of advice and preparation. Because yeah, you don't want to fall out of status. Otherwise, it can impact a lot of different things, especially job offers and the like. Okay. Ariba says, hi, Mark. I have about 2.5 years of full-time experience and several years spread out freelance. Oh, freelance, Ariba. That's tricky. Does freelance work only count if the hours amount to 15 or 30 hours per week? For example, I have 5,500 hours spread out over 7 years. I just had a long consultation with someone in the United States, actually, who was a musician. And she had done basically contract type work over a longer period of time. She'd had some different gigs. She had worked for different orchestras, and she's a real professional musician, but it's not your traditional full-time 9-to-5 work. And I can tell you that it's going to be very, very difficult for you to claim that experience. So no, the answer, unless you can show that you've got at least 15 hours of continuous part-time over 2 years to meet at least the minimum 1 year, you're not even going to get through the gate. So good question, Ariba. Okay, Vinay says, hi, Mark, I received the US. Okay, don't post your questions multiple times, guys. Okay, all right. Okay, Vipin says, hi, Mark, hope you're doing great. I submitted my profile on June the 7th, but still no updates. My medical is being updated, and it's still at IP1, not moving forward. Vipin, you've got loads of time. The government, I never worry about these things. They just take time, especially in the summer. People go on holidays. Even the officers go on holidays. So things take time. And June, July, August, you're not even 3 months yet. And the government has said their standard for processing is that they will process at least 80% of the applications within 6 months. You're well within those times. Okay, Udit gives me a nice smiley face. On my phone, so can't type, otherwise I would have the link, the page. Thanks, Udit. All right. Mahesh, thank you. You rock as usual, he says. Appreciate your explanation. You're very welcome, Mahesh. Um, Jahanzeb says 4:30. Any chance for ITA? Buddy, the likelihood is very, very low. Very low. But I wonder, is there other things that maybe you can do to increase your points? Can you maximize your language? Are you have you did a search? Have you tried to see if there's any companies that are looking to hire? Is it possible to get a job offer? Everybody and their dog and cat and pet and horse and everything else, they're all coming to Canada on study permits. And the study permits are becoming more and more difficult to get. But that is another way, right? If you come, you get a Canadian education, 2 years, even a 4-year program, you can get 15 or 30 extra points. Then you get your postgrad work permit. Then you can get, depending on the length of time, I would never ever come and study in Canada for just 1 year. It's just not worth it. Always go for 2, because then you'll get a 3-year postgraduate work permit versus a 1. So anyone trying to peddle, hey, 1-year education program, don't do it. It's not worth it. And especially if you're getting older, remember, I should do a special little express entry tip of the day or whatever on the difference between, coming to Canada when you're young and coming to Canada when you're older, because you're losing age points. And so you have to balance everything out. And so lots of people are coming and studying in Canada, which is causing, the government to start to question whether people are actually genuine students or just coming to get more points for permanent residence. So 4:30, Jahan, it's going to be really tough. Very unlikely through the general stream. Nav says CRS is 4:45 and I got ITA. I just want to know that I started working full-time in July of 2017. Okay, and got my postgrad work permit on the 28th of September. So my 1-year experience will be counted from July 2017 or September, which is on the postgrad. Applied for postgrad in mid-July 2017. Nav, that's a great question. The answer is you can start counting from the date you submitted your postgrad work permit. So it's neither of those dates, I'm assuming. So after you've completed your education, you've met all of those requirements for your postgrad, and the date that you filed your application, from that date, and you've got proof of if it's online, proof of it being accepted, you can go from that date and count that date. So I'm assuming it's probably somewhere in between. All right, great question. So you're going to be really close, really close. All right. Okay, and then Nav says, I'm working as a customer service manager full-time. Nope, if you qualify under the Canadian Experience class, you do not have to show proof of funds. That's one of the awesome parts of it. Okay, Udit says, if I'm applying for a student visa, do you suggest I withdraw my EE profile? I'm waiting at 438 right now. Udit, I'll tell you, lately there has been a huge trend by immigration to refuse study permit applications for people who've even submitted a profile. So now they're actually using that intention to immigrate or an expression of interest in immigrating to Canada as a ground or one potential reason to question whether or not someone is a genuine student. So understand that withdrawing really isn't going to make a difference in my mind, because you still have had a profile in there, and that they want to use it against you, they can. All right, but that's a good question. So it really isn't going to make a big difference for you. I would, ultimately, you can't retract it. You can't remove it from your immigration history. It's in there. Even though a submission of a profile cannot be considered an application to IRCC, it still it forms a part of your record, your immigration history. So they can go back, they can look at it. And I have seen people had their study permits refused because they'd submitted an express entry application, or at least submitted a profile. Okay, Carolyn says, thank you. You bet. Kishan, hello, Mark. What is the scope of 438 CRS? I really don't think it's going to drop below 440, Kishan. We keep our fingers crossed, but there's just no guarantee. The Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program, sometimes they will open up that human capital stream, and I have seen them issue invitations or expressions of interest to people that are in that range. So it's possible if you've listed Ontario as a potential destination. But yeah, coming down through the regular process, it's going to be quite unlikely. Hussein says, hey, Mark, how can freelancers prove their work experience who have worked with multiple clients on project basis and not on hourly or monthly salary? It is extremely difficult. You just have to do the best that you can. You have to document through the whole period of time how you were actually working a certain number of hours. And when it comes to freelance, by its very nature, you're not often full-time. And that's why it doesn't work very well, because you're only given credit for having worked continuously part-time, 15 hours a week for 2 years is the minimum requirement, or full-time 30 hours per week over a 1-year period. So understand that just by its very nature, if you're a freelancer, you're just going to have a rough, difficult time proving it. It's not impossible, but you have to really truly show that you have worked the full-time or part-time. That's a mandatory requirement of claiming work experience. Okay. Mubin says, good to see you live. Awesome. Welcome, Mubin. Where are you listening in from, Mubin? Just type in a comment. I'd love to hear where you're listening in from. Okay. M. Kashif says, import and export self-employed under Federal Skilled Worker Program through Express Entry. Do they fit in and knock? There's always a knock for every type of position, my friend. But import and export, I'd have to see the job description, and that's something. When it comes to finding the proper knock, it can mean the difference between getting your application approved or rejected. So I'll tell you guys repeatedly, if anytime someone asks me a question about whether or not their job description actually meets their proper knock, I just typed in comments in the comment section a link to where you can book a paid consultation with me, because that's exactly how I deal with that. I never answer those questions here, because it takes sometimes a forensic evaluation to make sure. You can't take any chances. And here's why getting your knock wrong is so bad. The officer does not look at it until months and months after you've submitted your application. So examining forensically a reference letter does not happen till near the end of the process. So if you get it wrong at that stage, you've lost months and months of time. In fact, you could lose the time where the ITA that you got, the rounds of invitations never drop below it. So more pressing, more important than ever, you guys, you cannot afford to make mistakes now, because we just do not know. If you're at 440 and you were a person who was drawn at 440, it may never return to that again. And the consequences of getting something wrong, doing it yourself and just crossing your fingers, can be catastrophic. Even more so than ever before, because you get it wrong. It never comes down to that pass mark that you got, that round of invitation level. Your hope of coming to Canada could be gone. Okay. All right. Let's see what else we have here. Karar says, hi, I'm from Baghdad, search for asylum to Canada. Okay. That's not something that that's not something that I answer within this EE Live Q&A. So refugee is a whole different thing, and I actually don't assist with refugee matters, so I can't answer those questions, Karar. Ralph Hansky, my friend Ralph, I am looking so forward to coming up. I guess it is a week from Saturday to see you guys. I am really, really looking forward to it. So Ralph is one of my past clients, and him and his sister Bella and husband Kai, they're like family. And little Jaden, Ralph's nephew, awesome. I'm so looking forward to it. Okay. All right. Vinay says, thank you, Mark. Apologies for the double comments. That's okay, my friend. It delays things to get to other questions so that I can answer as many people as possible. Okay. All right. Next question here. Let's see if I can jump to it. Okay, Zishan says, one of my friend question is, I'm currently based in SA and I have submitted a police clearance for Saudi Arabia and Pakistan in my EAPR. My question is about the post-AOR process. Okay, let's see here. Oh, my friend, this is a long one. Okay, I'll try to go through, but you need to keep the questions smaller because they just eat up too much time reading them. I've received my AOR June 24th, in a situation where I need to shift from my country of residence. I know that any change of address or contact information has to be reported. I'm not simply changing my address. I'm moving from my current residence back to my home country. If I make this move, do I need to obtain a new set of police? Do you know what, my friend Zishan, this is actually more involved than I can answer in a comment. And I don't want to just throw out an answer and then not understand something within this question. And so I recommend that your friend actually reach out to me and book a paid consult, and I can answer all of those questions and help them to navigate exactly how you deal with this tricky issue. Yes, you have to update, but whether or not you really need to update your address or whether it's just a temporary stay, those are a whole different set of questions. Okay. Okay. Anna says, hi, Mark. The 1-year visa that you get to land through EE, does it start from the medical check, which can be around 6 months before, or from the moment the visa is issued? Great show. Annis, the visa that's issued to you typically expires 1 year after the immigration medical was obtained. So the immigration medical is valid for 1 year. And so when you get the passport, the confirmation of permanent residence, the visa that's in your passport is often linked directly to the 1 year expiry of the medical. So that's the date that you go for. Okay. All right. Let's see what we got here. So now, Sonia says, Mark, I work as a full-time employee, but hired as a consultant. Reason being the company was not registered in India. So I didn't get any salary. Instead, it was shown as a business income. Will it still be seen as a job? Oh, Sonia, that's way more complicated. I can't answer that one. That's really, really tricky. Ultimately, it's whether you're an employee or a consultant freelancer, that's not a bad thing. Like, it doesn't mean because you're a freelancer, therefore you can't claim the work experience, but you need to be able to demonstrate that it's true. You know, the reference letters, the evidence that you actually worked in the occupation, that you were paid. And that's where it becomes really complicated. Sonia, I recommend if you want to go through this and you got these questions, that you actually book a paid consult. It's not something that I can give you a direct answer here in these comments. It's a tough one for sure. Mubin says, Pune, India. Awesome. I started following you today. Now I'm seeing you online. Amazing Canada is too close now. I love this. I absolutely love these EE Live Q&As. They are so cool because I can interact with you guys all over the world. And no matter what time zone you're in, no matter where you are, as long as you've got an internet feed, we can talk one-to-one right here. And I love this because our interaction, when I'm giving this free information away to you guys, the reality is people all over the world can benefit from it. And that's why it's worth it to me to do. Whereas if people send me private messages, I'm only communicating with them. And so my limited time, my precious time that I have is magnified by doing these EE Live Q&As. So many more people can benefit. And that's why I'm so willing to do this. Okay. And other people are wondering, well, why, Mark, why are you doing this? Well, why? To show people that I actually know what I'm talking about and that I'm someone that you can trust if you do decide to hire a paid representative. And that's really my end goal. That's secondary to helping people, is having people actually book consults with me and pay me. This is what I do for a living. Okay. All right. Kashif says, thanks, Mark. You bet. Ariba says, thank you. Would 1,540 hours continuous over a year count if the hours are spread out over several clients? The key is not so much, well, obviously you need 1,560 over a full year. So 40 isn't enough. When you're working with several clients, you have to be able to show as an independent contractor with your own business, self-employed, that you've worked at least 30 hours a week. And that's where it's going to be tricky. And you have to be creative in how you document that. All right. Good question, though. Good question. All right. I'm going to answer a couple more questions and then we're going to wrap it up. Okay. So Umair says, I have 3 years experience under 2 NOCs. Can I claim them as 3 years experience or not? You need to first demonstrate that you have at least 1 year continuous employment in your primary NOC. Once you've been able to satisfy that, and that alone has given you enough points under the Federal Skilled Worker Program, that selection criteria we talked about, as long as you've met the 67-point pass mark, then you can use the other work experience to count towards your comprehensive ranking system score, that work experience. So the answer is yes, but there's a lot of different aspects to this UMER as well. Were there gaps between these? Was the positions, like that? There's a whole bunch of other things, so I can't tell you 100%, but it is possible. Okay. Okay. Carrara, I've already told you that I don't answer questions about refugee. Okay, my friend. Okay, Giandeo, hey Mark, my cousin, want to apply for Express Entry. I'm not able to find those pics which show those packs. Please put link where I can see it. I have no clue, Gian. I have no clue what you're talking about, my friend. Maybe try to reword it because I have no clue what you're talking about. Okay, Nav says, Mark, I already applied for my paper-based PR after getting BCPNP. Cool. But it's going to take so long. Yes, it is. But you have the ability to immigrate when so many other people, Nav, don't. And so you don't know what people would give to be in your position, even if you have to wait another 18 months for it to process. Okay, can I still apply for Express Entry without withdrawing my paper-based PR? The answer, Nav, is yes, 100% you can. Okay, Petra says, hi Mark, relatively new to the immigration thing, but really want to move to Canada. Would you suggest going, around 100 points, around 400 points, would you suggest going for PNP? Hobby and I have been flight attendants for the last 8 years and both have bachelor's degrees. Thank you. Petra, yeah, the reality is 400 points isn't going to be enough. And so you'll have to consider PNPs, but I'll be honest, flight attendants usually are not on occupations in demand lists. But even then, guys, the occupations in demand lists are shrinking. Fewer and fewer PNPs are actually immigrating or sponsoring or nominating people that don't have some form of a connection with the provinces. Okay, Amina says, hi Mark, kindly answer my question. For proof of funds, if bank refuses to mention 6 months average balance on the letter, will bank statements suffice? Yes, Amina, you just do the best that you can. And if the bank doesn't cooperate, then you explain it in a letter of explanation. And bank statements showing your actual statements, that will work. Okay. Bipasha says, need a help, received nomination from PNP New Brunswick 2 years back, received ITA almost more than a year. Now medical expired, June, still no response from CAC. So what to do now? Bipash, you'll need to book a paid consult. You need to contact me and we can look into it and see what the issues are, what the delays are, but that definitely requires a paid consult. Gian says, sorry, man, she want to hire you. She want to know how much she need to pay. So please put link of your hiring pack. Okay. I just put that in there, guys. When it comes to the actual cost of representation, I'm going to put this link here for you. It always starts with a paid consult. So 200 plus GST is $210 Canadian. That's how I start every single relationship with my clients because it gives me a chance to assess eligibility because I don't want to have someone give me money to help them with their permanent residence when they don't have a good chance of getting an ITA. Not eligible. Many, many people are eligible and never will have a chance to get an ITA. So that's why we do it. Mina says, thanks so much for your help. And we will, I think we'll end right here. Actually, I'll end with Zishan. So Zishan says, Mark, does one have any chance of immigration with IELTS over 6 bands? For instance, with L5s and 6s? No, my friend. Very, very unlikely to be able to immigrate directly through Express Entry through the general stream with those scores. At a minimum, to get through Express Entry, you need to have at least a CLB7, which for all intents and purposes is at least a 6. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Those of you who I didn't get to your questions this week, remember that all you need to do is send an email to mholthy@stringham.ca and make sure that you make sure I got this here, EE Live Q&A in the subject line, and then your answers to your questions will be given first. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope all of you guys have a wonderful day. If you need any help or any assistance from myself, Mark Holthy, Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, I am happy to arrange a consultation, and you can click on the links within the comment section here to access that. Also, remember that I always have right here, the promotion is gone, but the monthly access to the Express Entry Complete Step-by-Step Guide to Doing It Yourself is about $97 US, and it automatically renews until you wish to cancel it. And many people are able to get in, use it for a month, and then cancel the subscription, and they get all the information that they need. Obviously, think about it. For 1 month, you can often get a lot of information out of it. All right. So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this EE Live Q&A. Until next time, I wish you guys all the best as you're navigating this crazy world we call Express Entry. Take care. Bye.